the best, worst podcast you've ever heard. And now, The Ronnie and Bo Show, brought to you by Prescott Realty.
Welcome to the Ronnie and Bo Show, brought to you by Prescott Realty. Thank you, Prescott Realty, for being our sponsor.
Prescott Realty, 928-499-8700. If you have any real estate questions or needs.
They are such an amazing group of real estate specialists. They're not generalists, they are specialists. And so if you're looking for a custom lot, or maybe you're a first-time home buyer, or looking for an existing home or maybe a new home, those are all different aspects of the same industry.
And you don't have to remember the specialists. They're specialists. They'll help you. So when you call Prescott Realty at 928-499-8700, they'll hook you up with the right person. Thank you, Prescott Realty, for sponsoring the Ronnie and Bo Show. It's the Ronnie and Bo Show, and boy, do we have a great guest today, Ronnie.
This has got to be one of the most unique, special times that we've got right now.
This is cool.
Yeah.
The Farmers Almanac has been around since 1818, and we got its editor, Peter Geiger. Peter, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me too. This is exciting.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're excited that you're here. So
yeah, we're the lucky ones here. This is a good moment. This Farmers Almanac's been around that long, but you haven't, right, Peter?
No, I haven't, thank God. But my name has been on the almanac. Well, my dad did it for 60 years, from 1935 till 1994 when he passed away.
Wow.
My name has been on the almanac since 1979. I was an associate editor. And so the 2019 edition is my 40th birthday or 40th anniversary of being an editor of the Farmers Almanac. And in 1995, Sandy Duncan, who's my managing editor, she and I started a retail version of the book. So this is our 25th issue of the retail edition. So from 1818 until 1994, you only got the almanac if a business gave it away to you. And we had like 6.5 million copies given away by banks and businesses all over the country.
Wow.
So we have some businesses that still give it away, actually millions of them. But we also have a million copies that are sold on the newsstands, and we want to differentiate because there's maybe 4 almanacs you may see on the newsstands. And so ours is orange and green.
Yeah.
It's Farmers Almanac, no other title. And so it's just great to be with you. And I think the almanac is something that people have always heard about. In some cases, they don't know what's in it. They know it has something to do with the weather,
right?
But that's only a small part of it. And so it's kind of fun to be able to kind of delve into it a little bit today.
That's so good. And you were kind of trained up, primed up to be the editor. I mean, since you were a little guy, right?
Well, yes, I definitely was. I was 7 years old, and my father was already saying to me, you really should think about being the editor of the Farmers Almanac. And I'm saying, oh, really? And finally, the hook was that no editor died before the age of 86. So I thought, well, that's a pretty good life insurance policy. Now, my father, unfortunately, died at 83. He said if he went before 92, it was premature. But
he still had a good
from the earliest. Well, from the earliest age, I was supposed to be the editor, and here I am, 40 years later, still being the editor along with Sandy Duncan, and quite frankly, a really good team. It's not just me; it's a bunch of people who put it all together.
So, what is the history of the almanac? Was it for weather, or was it for farmers, or what was it for?
Well, it's a great question because going back to 1639 was the first almanac in America. It was called the Captain Pierce's Almanac, but the almanac was really, if you had a printing press, you printed almanacs and you probably printed Bibles, but there wasn't much else. There weren't newspapers and other things. So almanacs were sort of a guide to good living for people. So if there weren't a lot of doctors, you had a medicinal almanac. If there weren't ministers, you had a religious almanac. In our case, it was a farmer's almanac. And so the purpose of our almanac in 1818 was to help farmers. And at the same time, David Young, who was the first editor, wanted to predict weather for farmers because weather is a big deal. So he was an astronomer and a calculator, and he developed a mathematical formula which is applied to sunspot activity, planet positions, the effect the moon has on the Earth. That allowed him to do the weather, and allows us to do it 2 years in advance.
Wow.
Now, when he did it, it was New Jersey and probably New York, and now it's all over the country. And so Sandy and I kind of split it into 7 zones, and we do it 2 years in advance. I'm not in competition with the National Weather Service or anybody else. But
Right.
if you want to get married next July, or if you're going to plan your vacation, I think we're a pretty good resource. And we've had our successes, and we've missed a few too.
Well, that seems to be the case in general, but with the weather.
Yeah.
But you guys have a high
Well,
success rate.
I always like to say that the weatherman's never wrong; it's the weather that's wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's nice. So tell me,
I live by that theory.
nice,
Yeah.
nice. So you were mentioning the weather. What is this Embertide? The 3 days of the Embertide foretells the weather conditions for the next 3 months. Do you know what I'm referring to?
I'm not quite sure on that one. I think it has something to. Yeah, I mean
something like you take the weather of September 19th, 21st, and 22nd, and then that will rule the weather for October, November, December, and then
yes,
go ahead.
That's part of the folklore. And Ember days are like prayer days, I think, in the Catholic Church.
Okay.
And so somebody said that if it happens on those days, then you have a certain kind of weather. We have a whole section in the almanac about favorite weather lore. If it's cold at night, then and when the stars shine bright, then it'll be cold in the morning, and it'll be cold all day. When the dew's on the grass, rain will never come to pass. So.
That's fascinating.
There were things that what people in the 1800s didn't know, they had to observe, and when they observed, it became part of the lore.
Yeah.
And some of it's true, and some of it's probably not true. But in the book and on our website, you can find all kinds of weather lore, and so that's what we try to share that too, because I think it's important to realize that you observe things. For example, I think this year, I don't know where you are, but the squirrel activity has been amazing. I mean, there are squirrels on top of squirrels. I mean,
Wow.
One of the signs of a hard winter is unusual amount of squirrel activity and unusual amounts of acorns, and that means it could be a hard winter. That's because people used to observe it. Now, you and I may not know what a lot of acorns is or a lot of squirrel activity is, but many people have mentioned to me how many squirrels are just going crazy around their yards.
I could actually attest to that. So we're up in northern Arizona. So we're a mile-high elevation, pine tree forests, and it's been crazy.
Squirrels running up and down the trees.
Yeah, that's it. So we better brace for winter.
I have a dumpster at work, and sometimes I get 4 of these things jumping out at all at one time. It's like, whoa!
And then some weeks or some parts of the year there won't be any, right? I mean, it'll be scarce.
Yeah.
So there is some truth to that. We're talking with Peter Geiger. He's an editor of Farmers Almanac. The Almanac this year, the 2019 edition, it's a beautiful cover. It's got a farmhouse on a nice green patch of grass with the sunrise, I would say, orange and yellow sunrise coming up behind it. So it's half orange and half green, this Farmer's Almanac for the year 2019. We were talking before we got on the air about a title that you have. Am I saying this right? Philam or what? What is it?
Yeah, Philam. If you go back, you'll find that when Ben Franklin put out his almanac, he wrote as Richard Saunders Philam. My first editor, David Young, was a Philam, and as it turns out, it's somebody who's a lover of learning. Okay, so if you're really an intelligent person, you crave information and you want to share it, and you edit an almanac, then you become a Philam. So somehow my dad picked up on that and became a Philam, and so now I'm a Philam. Sandy's a Philam, but I think we're the only 2 philomaths officially in this country, maybe in the world. I'm not sure.
I bet that's too good. That's too good. So how does this Farmer's Almanac that was started way back early 1800s still remain popular, connect with people today?
Yeah, well, about 3 years ago, I think it was in Chicago, and I was saying that I really think that the almanac is going to be popular with the millennials. And the reason I say that is because I really think people want to try different things, whether it's growing your own food or whether it is, not using chemicals to kill weeds on the ground. Instead, you boil water and pour it on there, or you put baking soda and then vinegar on ant holes, and it kills them. I think people truly want to be good to the earth. I think people want to find out inexpensive ways of doing things. And so probably 25 years ago, Sandy and I were talking about doing things to save money, and now I think we're talking about doing things because it's the right thing to do. For example, we have a story, and this isn't terribly new or not, but we have a thing about 5 plastic items that we should stop using. One of them is straws. Obviously, there's 750 billion straws. We talk about water bottles. Something like 1,500 water bottles are consumed every second. there's coffee pods, styrofoam cups, and then there's grocery bags. So we have solutions or alternatives for each of these things, and it's partly to not waste the product, but also in the Pacific, there's just a lot of this plastic has gone into huge mounds of garbage dumps.
I was talking about that plastic waste with my kids, and they knew this before I knew this. There's some kind of plastic island out in the Pacific Ocean.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Just floating around.
Well, I don't know, it all started. It started when there was some videos of turtles and things with plastic straws.
Right, yeah.
And well, I mean, I want to do it because you know what? I don't want to waste stuff, and I grew up during a generation when everything was going to be disposable cameras and everything was disposable. But I think we've moved on, and now there's so many more people on this earth, and we don't want to just kind of waste it. So we try to come up with ideas that are unique, that are easy. A couple that I actually like this year, we're cracking the code. For example, when I make eggs in the morning, I usually hit it on the edge of my pot, and then in goes some of the cracks or some of the shell into the egg.
Right.
But if you hit the egg on a flat surface and then break it open, it will virtually
Oh.
not have anything in it. And
Peter, I'm 44 years old, and I
Just found that out.
right now, you've saved my life.
There's some things that are just really cool, and we want to crack the code for eggs. So on every egg carton, there's a code on it, and it usually has a number between 1 and 365.
Listen to this, Ronnie.
Yeah.
And so that's the day that the day of the year that it was packed or put in the carton. So even though there's a sale date, you might find out that it was packed 45 days earlier, which doesn't mean it's bad. But we also tell you to take an egg and put it in a glass, and if it sinks to the bottom, it's still good, and if it floats to the top, you don't want to use it.
Wow. I love that.
Huh.
Okay, so
And I'll tell you, the one I've been saying the most about, and people go, "Wow, that's really cool." And I've redone my office building in Lewiston, and we're all glass. So if you wash your glass on one side and you do it vertically, and then wash it on the other side and do it horizontally, then you know where your streak is.
Wow.
That's fun.
I mean, I never thought of that before, but
No.
you usually just kind of go in a circular motion. But if you go vertical, horizontal, it helps you determine how good a job you did and where you did it.
That's right. So Peter, does that fall into, because this year's issue, you address life hacks.
Yes.
And does that sort of thing fall into the general category of life hacks?
I think so. I mean, hack is, I think, a way to do things, and so we have some camping hacks and other kinds of hacks. We have we have 13 winter hacks keep a bag of kitty litter in your trunk. So when your car gets stuck in the snow, you just put kitty litter down, and it gives you traction. We talk about using coffee grounds. If you have used coffee grounds poured on your driveway and your walkway, it helps melt the ice, but it's also a natural, environmentally friendly way to have traction under your foot.
Wow.
Co-op snowblowers. I don't know. Do you ever use a snowblower down there?
Yeah,
we have. Yeah,
we do.
occasionally.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, you simply spray the snowblower clean and dry auger inside the chute with cooking spray, like Pam, and then launch it into the snowdrifts, and you won't have the stickiness.
Nice. I didn't know that.
Probably true for a shovel as well. So a lot of this stuff is in the Almanac. Some of it's online. We also, by the way, have a free newsletter. So people go to my website, farmersalmanac.com. Every Wednesday they can get more information about various topics for free of charge, and it's just a way to stay connected with people who enjoy what we talk about.
This is a fun little magazine, the Farmers Almanac for the year 2019, and I'm, as you're talking, we're listening, and I'm just thumbing through this, and I don't have a question, but you got 5 best veggies for small space gardening. You have 5 top veggies to grow vertically. I mean, just so many tips. I mean, you've got 50 state facts you may have never heard of, these kind of things, Philosophax.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things is we don't know where the food comes from that we're buying in the store sometimes, and so there's this element of doubt about how good let's say vegetables are or fruits are. And if you live in Maine, your growing season's very short, but if you live where you are, it's probably a lot longer. But I came across somebody who has, like, let's say 25 5-gallon buckets filled with good soil, and he grows different things in each bucket. He keeps it around his swimming pool so that the animals don't get to it. And if it gets cold at night, he can pull it into his garage and then put it out during the daytime. And I never thought about growing stuff that way. But we do talk about if you have an apartment, or if you even want to grow pineapples in your living room, you can, even if you live in the north, you can do it. So, yeah, I think it's, again, I think we try to empower people to try things that they maybe hadn't done before. And sometimes somebody will say to me, well, my grandparent used to read the almanac. But I always like to say, well, they read it when they were younger because they needed it to raise their family. And so while sometimes it sounds like, okay, it's just for farmers, it really isn't. It was for farmers in the 1800s. But today I think it's as much for urban people as it is for people who have a little bit of land around their house.
Well, I would agree with that. I think you're right too. And even talking about millennials and these upcoming generations, I mean, they seem more in tune or desiring to kind of live life more healthy and be a little bit softer on the environment. So that's such a great tool. We've got a lot of fishermen and hunters in our area. Is there info in the Farmers Almanac that maybe helps them as well?
Well, I got some life hacks, but I can't find the page right off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that's good.
But online we have any number of fishing bits of information. So if you go to farmersalmanac.com, it is the number one page that people go to, and you just click on fishing. And I think, and unlike the average age, I think somebody who goes online is maybe 35 to 50. That particular page happens to be for younger people, particularly males, 24 to 34. So so it's there's something there for everybody, and that's the intent of the book.
That's for sure.
In this edition of the Farmers Almanac 2019, you've got best days. I love the best days. It's just a best days segment, so to speak, but best days to garden, to fish, to quit smoking. Can you explain the best days segment?
Well, it's based upon moon phases, and it's based upon some astrology, and some people believe in it, some people don't believe in it. But for years and years, it was always about what's the best day to dig a post, because the theory being if it's the light of the moon, there's probably when you plant it then and pack it, the dirt holds it together better than the other sign. So, but then a few years ago, somebody said to me, "Can't you be a little bit more modern than that?" Because there was also one about castrating the bull and the poor bull. So we have things about best day to get married, best day for all kinds of things. So you can calculate almost anything based upon the moon phases, and some people just live and die by it. And quite frankly, there's a few people who there's a best day to cut your hair to have it grow back better or thicker.
Wow.
And I've had 2 or 3 people who suffer from cancer who told me that really does work for them.
Fascinating.
And, so if it works for you, then you do it. But we do have happy camper, healthy hiker hints. We talk about when you have blisters emerging, place a piece of duct tape over the hot spot to stop it from becoming worse. So using duct tape to prevent it. We say that what baking soda toothpaste does more than keep your teeth clean. If you've been cleaning fish, squeeze a quarter drop of paste onto a hard scrub, and then you scrub the fish, and it gets rid of the odor.
Wow.
It's amazing stuff, right?
So,
That's amazing.
So, and if you want to get something clean on your table, let's say you have toothpaste or something that's gotten hard, you just use a salt shaker and a sponge, and it wipes it up. It's sort of a inexpensive, cheap way of cleaning whatever you want to clean.
That's amazing. So, Peter, you as a lover of learning, officially, you've really got a passion for public education. Can you talk to us about a couple of the things that maybe you've been involved with, just to push that along?
Oh, sure. Well, back in the 70s, we brought junior achievement to Maine, and then I got on the board of a college. Then I got on the state board of education. I was on the state board from 92 to 97, and again, I was just on the state board 2012 to last year, 2017. So, and I was chair of a business education coalition in the state for 6 years. Wow. And then the most exciting thing I think I ever did, and it was because I went to Atlanta to speak to a school kids when I was promoting the Almanac many years ago, and there was an adopt school program. So I came back and said to somebody ought to do that. Next thing I know, I'm adopting a school of 900 elementary school students, and my company and all my 600 associates adopted them. And so for 25 years, I had this outstanding adopt a school program, and it was so good that in '92, President Bush gave me a point of light for what we were accomplishing.
Oh, wow!
But everything is about education. I mean, let's face it: reading, writing, our whole future is education, and the better we can do as adults to instill it and to have better policies and help students learn however they want to learn, because it's obviously if I think back to when I first adopted Montello School, and 25 years later, it's very, very different environment and very different needs. So we got to keep doing the best we can for teachers and for students.
That's for sure.
So Peter Geiger is the editor of the Farmers Almanac since 1818. No, the Almanac has been since 1818.
Yeah.
Not Peter. Not Peter. He's young sounding.
I'm only 40 years.
He's not 200
of that almanac history. Yeah. Peter. I just lost my train of thought. But let's jump over to the. I wanted to know, where do people get the Farmers Almanac? Do they buy it?
Great question.
Where can you get it?
Well, you can actually get. I mean, I presume your audience is virtually everywhere. So I would say that if you can find a store that sells magazines, for the most part, we should be there. A lot of supermarket chains. I know Tractor Supply stores have it.
Cool. Nice.
Walmart should have it. CVS should have it. Barnes and Noble. But just remember, it's an orange and green cover, because sometimes you'll ask somebody for an almanac and they point you to something else because they don't know the difference. You can also go online to farmersalmanac.com and get it there. You can also download it on a Kindle device. You can get it electronically. There's all kinds of things you can do. We even have a letter for brides to be, telling them what the weather's going to be on whatever date, wherever it's going to be. They can order that online as well. So, but I'm glad you asked that question, because and then there's a number of businesses around the country who give the almanac away as a promotional item. So, keep your eyes and ears open, and you'll find somebody.
Now, I got to tell you, I discovered you by hearing you do an interview on another place or whatever, another place in time, and you mentioned the hole, the punched hole in the upper left corner of the magazine. Can you tell us that story?
Well, sure. When people first had almanacs, let's say 1818, there was no bookcases. You had Bibles and you had an almanac. So what you had to do was punch a hole in the corner of your almanac and drill a hole in the corner and then tie a rope around it, and then that got hung wherever you used your almanac. So we still do it, but in 1919, because I went last year or so, 2 years ago, I went through all the almanac editions, and I discovered it was 1919 when we started to drill the hole ourselves. Because now you have bookcases and so forth. But if you still want to hang that little sucker, you have this hole. You put a cord there, and you can hang it wherever you want to hang it.
or you hit it with a nail on the side of the barn, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, the outhouse, whatever you want to do. It's okay with me. Wherever your reading and best thinking goes, it's okay with me.
So the Farmer's Almanac is good for many things. Let's go back a little bit to weather. Do you have any information about the weather specifically before we wrap things up? Do you have anything specifically about this coming winter?
And if I said no, you would shoot me.
No.
Obviously I do. What we're saying is it's going to be teeth-chatteringly cold ahead.
Ooh.
We're saying that from, let's say, New England all the way through, I would say, through the Great Plains and the South, it's going to be very, very cold, snowy in the northern parts. On the West Coast, we say typical winter for the Northwest, and then mild temperatures, average precipitation for you guys in the Southwest,
right?
Yeah. So you can go to my site and find the weather map and see what we're saying. We have a different weather map for the next summer, but we're here. We are the weather, but I don't want to say that the almanac
You're
is
more
just
than
weather.
the weather.
I mean, it's one aspect of a very important book, and I'm so delighted to be able to talk about it with you guys, and hopefully we can do it again.
The website is farmersalmanac.com. It's the orangish, reddish top half and the greenish bottom half. If you're looking at the book here, the almanac, we're talking to Peter Geiger. Peter, thank you very much for spending some time out of your day and sharing this with our audience. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter.
Oh, boy, wasn't that a fun interview?
Oh, man, he's fantastic.
Well, thanks for listening to another episode of the Ronnie and Bo Show, brought to you by Prescott Realty. You can get in touch with them or get more information by going to their website, prescottrealty.com, or calling them at 928-499-8700.
Thanks for listening to the Ronnie and Bo Show, available on your favorite podcast provider. Please connect with the Ronnie and Bo Show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and RonnieandBoShow.com. Send comments to RonnieandBoShow@gmail.com. This is your announcer speaking. I'm Shotgun Tom Kelly.